Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Operating Officer, Products and Cloud Services, VMware, Raghuram.
You take me to a place I know I have to face.
Good morning. I hope you all enjoyed the great general session today. What we'll do in this session is follow up on some of the things that Pat talked about and dive deeper into our hybrid cloud strategy. And we have a rich agenda today with myself, Mark Lohmeyer, Eric Kral from Atos, and Purnima. So before we talk about the hybrid cloud strategy, we all understand that infrastructure is in service of applications, right? So let's start by thinking about applications. All of you in your own companies or out in the industry can see the pace of application deployments and application development has dramatically accelerated thanks to a lot of new technologies, right? And over the next 5 years, and think of this stat, over the next 5 years, more applications and solutions will be deployed than were done in the last 40 years. This comes from IDC. It's an unbelievable stat, but if you just stop and think about all the apps on your phone, et cetera, you realize that this is absolutely true, right? Now the question is, so what does this mean for all of us, right? And if you think about all these applications and all the silos that they live in, right? It's one thing to develop these applications, but then how do you deploy these applications? How do you manage these applications? If each of these applications are in their own point silos, and they all use different operational tools to be able to deploy, manage, monitor, update, et cetera, recover, et cetera. And this problem forms the foundation of VMware's multi-cloud strategy. So when we think about all of these applications, and when we talk to a lot of customers like yourselves, the problem that emerges is this. All of you are running VMware in your data centers today. You're rapidly adopting a multi-cloud strategy, as was also evident in the keynote talks with some of the customers that were on stage. You're deploying on AWS, on Azure, on all the hyperscaler clouds. And now the question is, how do you impose some sort of consistency in all of this? How can you build your applications easier, simpler, faster, regardless of what cloud you want to deploy it on? And once you have built it, how are you going to run it? How are you going to manage it? How are you going to network them all together? And last but not the least, how are you going to secure all these applications? This is, in fact, the mission of VMware in the multi-cloud era, right? Many of you have been long-standing customers of VMware, and you all started VMware when we had a fairly simple mission, which was to virtualize your applications in your data center. And we've been successful since then, but now there's a whole new set of opportunities that face all of us, and a whole new set of problems that need to be solved. And this is the problem that we are solving, right? And over the course of this session, and in fact, the whole of the show, everything that you see in the show will be about one of these elements of our strategy. One specific aspect of multi-cloud is hybrid cloud. And what is the specific aspect of multi-cloud that makes it hybrid? For many of your applications and for many of your environments, it is highly desirable that even though you might be running in different locations, you want to have a consistent infrastructure and a consistent operational model that goes along with that infrastructure. The reason you want a consistent infrastructure is application behavior is dependent upon infrastructure at the end of the day, right? And you don't want to be able to see a vastly differing experience depending upon which infrastructure you run in. Secondly, applications do need to be ported and transformed and replatformed to different infrastructures, and that is not necessarily adding value to your business customers, right? So the value of a consistent infrastructure, regardless of how the application is run, whether it's run in VMs or containers, is tremendous. Along with that, if each time you move from one cloud to another or you deploy applications in different clouds, if the operational model is very, very different, if the tooling is very different, how you achieve security or backup or resiliency is so very different, right? Then the cost of operating in all of these clouds quickly dwarfs the benefits of operating in all of these clouds. So consistent infrastructure and consistent operations is how we define and how the industry is defining hybrid cloud. The difference between our hybrid cloud strategy and execution and everybody else is our hybrid cloud strategy does not dictate a particular cloud. So you can say my public cloud is AWS and my private cloud is VMware. You can have your hybrid there. Or you could say my public cloud is split across Azure and AWS, and my private cloud is VMware, and my data center edge is VMware. You can have consistent infrastructure and consistent operations across all of these. So regardless of which cloud you choose and how many clouds you choose, we can help you construct a hybrid strategy. The foundation for our hybrid strategy is a set of products that you probably already know in your data center. This is what we call the VMware Cloud Foundation. The component technologies are vSphere that you've been using for 2 decades now. It is vSAN, which is our hyperconverged storage offering, and NSX, which is our networking offering. This forms the core infrastructure, what we've called very often as the software-defined data center. In order to pull all these things together and turn it into a cloud, we have a management and the automation framework that we call vRealize. So the combination of these 4 elements constitutes VMware Cloud Foundation. And that is the foundation that customers are increasingly deploying in their data centers to simplify the data center, to get the kind of CapEx and OpEx savings that Pat talked about in the general session. What we've done is we've taken the same VMware Cloud Foundation and made that the building block of our hybrid cloud strategy. We've deployed it in every cloud and delivered a consistent infrastructure and operations on top of that. The reason you can trust a VMware Cloud Foundation is it is proven to run all of your enterprise applications. And with some of the announcements that we have made in Kubernetes, will be proven to run all of your modern cloud-native applications as well. So it's a universal platform. vSphere, of course, this is why it has over 300,000 customers running all sorts of applications, right? vSAN is the #1 hyperconverged storage infrastructure. NSX, 89% of the Fortune 100 use NSX. And the most demanding customers in the world, the telcos, they all standardize on NSX for their data center. And of course, vRealize has been helping you manage your data center for over 40,000 customers. vRealize Automation is the leader in cloud management. So if you want to build a cloud on your own today, the chances are you will be using all of these, and certainly you will not find a better product in any one category than any of these products. So this is the foundation of VMware Cloud Foundation, okay? So now if you take VMware Cloud Foundation and deploy it on any public cloud, private cloud, or at the edge, what you get is an infrastructure that you can trust for everything from your 1990s MS-DOS application to the latest and greatest cloud-native application. And with vRealize operations and vRealize automation now delivered as cloud services, you have a hybrid cloud operational framework that will allow you to create this infrastructure, slice and dice this infrastructure, assign it to your various user groups, manage it, monitor it, and so on. So the second distinction of our hybrid cloud strategy is it's not just about infrastructure. It's a comprehensive hybrid cloud operations framework that works, again, regardless of which cloud you're on, okay? The third distinction of our hybrid cloud strategy is you can manage it any which way you want. If you're VMware savvy or if you have a good, deep operations team, you can take our software, you can manage it yourself. Or if you want to rely on partners, our partners can offer our partners can offer VCF as a cloud managed service, right? And of course, with VMware Cloud and AWS, we ourselves are offering this as a managed service. So this range of options is, again, unparalleled in the industry. if you connect all of the clouds that our partners are delivering on top of VMware infrastructure with what VMware is built and offered on top of AWS, and with what the hyperscalers have announced and are building on top of their data centers, what you find is a global network of VMware Cloud choices that, again, is unparalleled in this industry. We have over 4,000 service provider partners. We are present in 103 countries. Oh, this is a nice build. Over 10 million workloads that are running in the public cloud today. Okay? And many of these partners have been working very closely with us to create value-added offerings using VMware as the foundation, but the unique value that they deliver to their customers on top of the VMware foundation. Let me highlight a couple that Pat talked about today. One is IBM, which has been a long trusted partner of ours. And IBM is using vCloud Director, which is our service provider operational framework. And it is a product that it can use to create a multi-tenant service provider environment on top of VMware infrastructure to enable customers of IBM to be able to deliver a multi-tenant infrastructure, to run in a multi-tenant infrastructure. VMware Cloud Director today is used by several hundred service providers as software. What we have done is we've taken that and we have delivered that as a SaaS service. And the benefit you get is now you can have any infrastructure underneath VMware Cloud Director to use as your cloud infrastructure. So many of you are probably running, those of you that are service providers are running your own data centers, operating your own data centers with VMware infrastructure and using VMware Cloud Director to offer a multi-tenant service. Now, what if you wanted to expand into another geo where you didn't want to build a data center? Or what if you wanted to be asset light? What VMware Cloud Director as a service allows you to do is to deliver your services on top of a public cloud infrastructure like VMware Cloud on AWS. So you get the best of both worlds. So we've got service provider customers that want to expand into Asia, right? That don't want to build a data center in Asia, that want to use VMware Cloud on AWS capacity in Asia, combine it with the capacity they've got here, and offer a global service. This kind of flexibility was previously not possible, that is now possible with the VCD as a service. We are particularly excited by two partner announcements. One is with DXC, which is a global system integrator, and they are offering a managed multi-cloud service provided by VMware. The second one that we are particularly excited by is with Atos. And Atos is offering a new digital hybrid cloud offering. And the reason we are particularly excited by this is it not only uses the traditional VMware products, but this is a service that will be built on top of our Tanzu application developer platform offering. And so, to talk more about this offering, let me invite Eric Grahl, who is the Chief Operating Officer and Head of Global Operations at Atos.
You take me to a place I know I have
Eric, good morning. Welcome to the stage.
Good morning, Raghu. Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. You're great partners of ours since 2009. Let me go back.
Yeah.
And you're doing a lot of work with our mutual customers in the cloud. Tell us a little bit about the kind of work that you're doing with your customers on the cloud.
Yeah, and yes, thank you for reminding the partnership because it effectively started more than 10 years ago. First on cloud,
Yes.
as a global system integrator. You even were part of our joint venture when we built the first generation of hybrid
Yes.
cloud in Atos back in 2012, and now expanding even beyond cloud in digital workplace and IoT. So talking about what cloud and what customers are looking for, I think they're looking for, fundamentally 4 things. That we collectively are trying to address together. The first thing is migrate as soon as possible their existing applications to the cloud. Mm-hmm. Private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, so that they can benefit from the agility, from the economy of scales, but also from the economics, the price points associated to that for the existing apps. The second thing they want to do is, of course, provide the platform for the developers that allows the development of the new native cloud apps, which is really important to them for the next generation capabilities they want to offer. Third, they want what you call multi-cloud or hybrid clouds, which means, of course, a private cloud for what has to stay more secure, more into the customer premises when they decide to do so, and then the ability to effectively get the elasticity, the connectivity, the transparency to expand from the private into the public. And I would say not in one public, but multiple public clouds, as you rightly said, and Pat said also this morning. Whoever it is, and you mentioned the hyperscaler's name, they want that ability to broker, to choose, and to get this elasticity. And finally, on top of all of that, they still want security and controls.
Great. Choice with security and controls. So what is this announcement? Give us a little bit of detail on what you announced today.
So it's about our new generation platform of hybrid cloud. We call it the Digital Atos Hybrid Cloud, Atos Digital Hybrid Cloud. And in fact, it puts in one place all together all the capabilities I was just talking about in terms of what customers want that we think addressing with that. First, it's not an announcement, it's shipping. It's general availability today. I can take orders, by the way, if you want, later on after the session. But it's really general availability. We're staging for the first customers as we talk. So it combines in one platform the ability to deal with the existing applications migrated to the cloud. At the same time, on the same platform, leveraging the new capabilities that we get from yourself as a partner, VMware, but also Pivotal, CloudBees, and leveraging also the latest Dell technology, and the ability for the native cloud developments to happen also on the same platform. So the two can coexist very well and natively expand into the public clouds.
So it's a comprehensive of bring your old, build the new, all in one platform. That's the value proposition.
With a consistent management platform end-to-end for both the private and the public part.
Yeah. Like I said, you are one amongst the earliest to use our Tanzu portfolio. Tell us a little bit about that. Is it primarily Pivotal and more than that, or?
So first, we are leveraging the latest and brightest from VMware, of course. It's V all over, so vRealize, vCloud Foundation, vRA Cloud, everything. It's also Pivotal PKS. And the first version that we're shipping as we talk is PKS based for the native cloud developments. And we're effectively moving into Tanzu, and Tanzu will become available also thanks to our joint development and activities.
That's great. Thanks for being a great partner and helping our joint customers. And
thank you.
Congratulations on your new release.
Thank you. Thank you for the partnership. And you can also visit our booth and meet our experts. We'll have breakout sessions throughout the days to come so that you can hear more about what we do. Thank you.
So with that overview of the VMware hybrid cloud strategy, let's dive into details on what we are talking about when we say consistent infrastructure and consistent operations, delivering to these kind of use cases that Eric talked about, that we see with our customers as well. So to do that, let me invite Mark Lohmeyer, who's the GM for VMware Cloud on AWS, onto stage.
Thanks, Raghu.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, thanks, Raghu. Great to be here this morning with all of you. So as Raghu said, I'll talk a little bit more about our consistent infrastructure strategy. And I think one thing that's interesting to note is that this idea of consistent infrastructure isn't really anything new to VMware. In fact, if you look back at the history of VMware, 20 years ago when we introduced the ESXi hypervisor and vSphere, on top of that, what we were effectively doing is providing compute virtualization, which provided consistent infrastructure across any compute hardware platform. And then more recently, as we introduced the idea of a software-defined data center, extending that idea of virtualization not just to compute, but also to storage with vSAN and to networking and security with NSX. And then on top of that, wrapping a whole layer of management with the vRealize portfolio on top of that. And we called that product, as Raghu talked about, VMware Cloud Foundation. Now, the interesting thing to note is that even though we call this thing the software-defined data center, if you think about that software stack, there's nothing that confines it to the data center, right? It runs on top of any x86-based hardware platform. And so as we look at the next stage of the VMware journey and really delivering on this idea of a hybrid cloud infrastructure, we can take that exact same compute, network, and storage and management tooling and run it on top of public clouds as well. AWS, Google, Azure, et cetera. And so that's really the next stage of the VMware journey. We call it the VMware Cloud, enabling this consistent infrastructure across anywhere you want to run your applications, whether it's in your data center, whether it's in any of the major public clouds or any of our 4,000 plus VMware Cloud provider partners around the world, or even in edge environments. So if you sort of zoom out for a sec, you kind of see the bird's eye view of this thing. We have that same VMware Cloud Foundation stack running across public clouds, data center, and edge. Let me start now by spending a little bit more time, and we'll double click on the public cloud part of this strategy. For VMware, this all started with VMware Cloud on AWS. We're actually now 2 years into the service, so it's been actually a little bit under 2 years since we initially launched the service. It's been an amazing 2 years. We've really trying to deliver on that core premise, the core value that we set off to build together with AWS, which is we wanted to deliver the best of everything that our customers love about the VMware capabilities, right? Enterprise class grade features and functionality, platform to run all of your apps in your data center, rich set of services and capabilities, with everything customers love about public clouds and AWS in particular, right? The global scale, the elasticity, the consumption-based economics, the access to all of the native AWS services. And so we've been iterating together through a very close joint engineering relationship over the last 2 years to really bring that to life. And during that time, we've also been trying to rapidly accelerate the availability of this service around the world. So in the first year of the life of the service, I would say we were a little bit cautious. We rolled out to 1 region per quarter for the first year because we wanted to make sure we had the operational muscle built within VMware to be able to do that. Once we got confident that we knew how to sort of roll this out to new AWS regions, over the last year we've really picked up the pace. And so now we've rolled out to roughly 3 to 4 AWS regions per quarter over the last year. We're now in over 16 regions around the world. And of course, here in Barcelona, we're really pleased to announce that we're now making the service available in the 5th and final region that's available today in EMEA in Stockholm, Sweden. And of course, in the future, we'll close off on the last few remaining AWS regions that we aren't currently available in. Also, as I look back over the last year, it's been really gratifying to see the adoption of the service. And so over the last year, we've actually been able to increase the number of customers using the service by 4 times. During that same period, we've increased the number of VMs or applications running on the service by 9x. So it's pretty interesting when you think about it, right? What that means is not only are more and more customers taking advantage of the service, but all of those existing customers are also expanding their consumption. Along with this, of course, we realize it's critically important to support the broad VMware partner ecosystem, both our go-to-market partners, our solution provider partners, our global systems integrator partners, as well as all of our ISV partners. And you see that we've been able to expand that ecosystem pretty aggressively as well over the last year, over a 3x increase where we were last year. At the bottom here, you can see some of the great ISV and technology partners that support the VMware Cloud Platform. Now, if you think about what's sort of been driving that growth in customer adoption and consumption, it really all comes back to the use cases, right? At the end of the day, people only use this if it delivers value to them and meets specific needs. And so over the last few years, we've also been able to, through working with many customers, get a really clear view of what are the most compelling use cases, to folks around the world. And that's what you're seeing here, right? So the first use case is cloud migration. The way I like to think about this is every product has to have some killer use case that really makes it take off, right? For vSphere, it was server consolidation, right? 10x cost savings. For NSX, it was microsegmentation. For VMware Cloud and AWS, cloud migration is the killer use case. We can take a cloud migration project and deliver orders of magnitude improvements in terms of reduction of time to do the cloud migration, reduction of cost, and reduction of risk, because you're really just literally migrating the applications using vMotion from your on-prem environment into VMware Cloud on AWS. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. The second big use case is data center extension. So we have many, many customers that have made meaningful investments in their data centers. they view that as strategic to their business, and they're only growing and increasing that investment in their own private clouds. But they also see the opportunity to take advantage of public clouds as an extension of that existing data center footprint. And because VMC and AWS is a VMware compatible, gives them VMware compatible capacity in any AWS region around the world, it opens up some really interesting possibilities, right? So disaster recovery with using VMC on AWS as a target for DR for your mission critical workloads. Super compelling use case. On-demand capacity, right? So maybe you have cyclical workloads or burst workloads, or maybe you just need 10 servers quickly, right? And it may take a while to get it into your own data center. You can put your credit card in and spin those up on VMC on AWS in a few minutes. And then finally, global footprint expansion, right? So maybe you're a European customer, you want to expand your business into Asia or into North America. You can spin up VMware compatible capacity anywhere where AWS has a presence and reach out to your customers there locally. So data center extension is a big one for us. Virtual desktops is number 3. I'll talk more about that, and we'll actually do a little bit of a demo on Horizon running on VMC and AWS. So we'll save that for the demo. And then the final big use case, as Raghu talked about, is it's not just about migration; it's also about modernization of applications. And so by adding services like Project Specific to enable Kubernetes natively in VMC with Tanzu Mission Control on top, we can start to enable our customers not just to migrate existing applications, but also modernize those applications when they're in the public cloud. And you can see on the bottom here, some examples of some great customers that have allowed us to use their logos that you can see are taking advantage of this wide variety of use cases. So let's talk a little bit more about cloud migration, right? So, so we knew a lot of customers were using VMC on AWS to migrate their vSphere-based workloads into AWS. And so we thought it would be interesting to actually ask a third-party consulting firm to go and talk to some of those customers about their experience and some of the benefits and some of the cost savings that they were able to realize. And so the chart on the left here it was based on some research done by Forrester, obviously a very well-respected third-party consulting firm. And what they found is that customers of VMC and AWS were able to significantly lower their TCO relative to what they were previously doing in what we refer to as a traditional data center. So traditional data center means just vSphere running on top of traditional hardware in a data center. So significantly improving their TCO versus that environment when they move into a full VMC and AWS cloud environment. In fact, on average, the savings they realized was 59%, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. But of course, the second piece of the sort of the cloud migration benefit is, hey, should I move to VMC or should I move to native public cloud? And so what we found from these customers is that by moving to VMC on AWS, we can significantly reduce the cost and the time and the risk of doing that migration. In fact, those same customers told us they saved roughly 69% versus what they would have spent if they had to re-platform, refactor, rework those applications just to be able to get them to run in a public cloud. And from a timing perspective, it's even more compelling. Right? We were able to take these cloud migrations from 2 to 3 years down to, in many cases, 2 to 3 months. Right? So if you think about wanting to get onto the business of modernizing and getting to your next generation of application development, cutting that time frame down is obviously hugely, hugely important. And so this is an area that we continue to invest in. A few things I'll highlight here that we're announcing this week. The first, Raghu already talked about, enabling VCD on top of VMC on AWS, which we think is going to be really exciting for many of our MSP and VCPP partners. The next is that we're actually continuing to expand the capabilities of HCX, great tool for migrating workloads. Now we've also built into that tool the ability not just to migrate from vSphere-based workloads into VMC and AWS, but also to be able to migrate from KVM on-prem-based workloads and from Hyper-V based on-prem workloads into VMC and AWS. We'll actually take care of doing that image conversion for you and then migrating the workloads over. And then lastly, we're always looking for ways that we can make the service more economical for our customers. And so one piece of feedback we got is, hey, we love this idea of stretch clusters across 2 AWS AZs for the highest level of availability. But many customers were not able to adopt it because of the cost, the incremental cost to do that. And so today we're pleased to announce that we're completely eliminating the additional VMware add-on option cost for stretch clusters. So now it's completely up to you whether you want to run in a single AZ or multi-AZ. It's basically the same price per host for VMC on AWS. And so we're really hopeful that and looking forward to that, enabling many customers to take more advantage of this great stretch cluster capability. But of course, it's not just about migrate, it's also about modernizing. And so again, Raghu talked about many of these things. I won't dwell on it too long here. But the ability to enable cloud health on top of VMC and on top of vSphere-based workloads on-prem to continue to optimize your ongoing costs of running applications on VMC. We're also, of course, planning to enable the full project-specific capabilities in VMC, because VMC is based on vSphere. It inherits all of the great properties of vSphere, but also brings with it the benefits of a public cloud. So if you want to give project-specific a try, pull out your credit card, go to the VMC console, put it in. For a few dollars an hour, you can spin up a host, and you can start to experiment and kick the tires with something like project-specific. Right? So we think that cloud-based consumption model is going to be really attractive here. And then finally, we continue to integrate more and more with the AWS native services. We're adding support, for example, for something called the AWS Transit Gateway. So if you've got a really large-scale environment, connecting multiple AWS customer-managed VPCs into multiple VMC and AWS VPCs, we'll be able to facilitate that through the Transit Gateway. All right, so a lot going on with AWS, but of course it's not only about AWS. Many customers want to run their VMware-based environments in Azure or in Google or in Oracle or in IBM or any one of our other 4,000 VCPP partners. And so we're really pleased to be able to bring those same benefits of a VMware-compatible environment into all of those other public clouds. With Azure, engineered and delivered jointly by Microsoft and Cloud Simple. It's available for purchase through Azure. You can buy it individually as well as you can leverage your existing Azure credits to take advantage of that service. And this week we're also announcing that we've added support for HCX into our Azure VMware solutions. Right? So those benefits of cloud migration that I talked about before, you can now take advantage of into Azure as well. With Google Cloud VMware solutions, same sort of approach, enabled by Google and Cloud Simple, and you can get access to this through the Google Marketplace, and also you can also use your Google Cloud credits. And then finally with Oracle Cloud VMware Solutions, again, managed and operated by Oracle in this case, and you can consume that through your Oracle commercial relationship. All right, enough about me sort of talking about these solutions. For the next step, what I'm really pleased to be able to introduce Andy Treba to the stage to join me today. Give Andy a quick round. Applause. All right. Hey, Andy.
Mark, how are you?
Thanks. Great.
Hey.
Yeah, thanks for joining. So for those of you that don't know, Andy flew in from the U.S. and you landed what? How long ago?
Literally an hour ago, so I'm actually happy to be here.
Yeah, so you look great for being on a plane for 18 hours.
Thank you.
So Andy, maybe you could start by, you're doing some really, I think your business model for Think3 is a really interesting business model. Maybe you could share with everyone kind of a little bit more about how that works.
Yeah, sure, Mark. So we are what I would call a high volume acquirer in the PE space. So we've purchased about 30 companies or so far this year, and we're going to be stepping that up to by one company a week next year. And actually in 2021, we're going to be moving to one company a day.
That's pretty impressive. Very good. And so you've also been taking advantage of some of the VMware capabilities. Maybe you could talk a little bit about why you chose VMware Cloud and AWS and maybe some of the benefits you've been able to realize there.
Yeah, sure, Mark. So as you can imagine, when you start buying 50, 100 companies, these infrastructures are all over the map. Right? Sometimes it's in a colo center, sometimes it's its own data center, sometimes it's like literally a box underneath the guy's desk, right? So you have to be able to pull all that together. You have to then be able to put it into a scalable infrastructure that not only can offer the benefits to the end customers that we promise, but then also for us to be able to manage it and be able to reduce costs.
So you think about the sort of the agility and the speed that the cloud provides. I mean, you guys are clearly kind of fully taking advantage of that. So you've had a lot of success with VMC on AWS. Could you talk a little bit about sort of where you're looking to go next?
Yeah, so we have seen a lot of success, using VMware as a whole, and we certainly appreciate all of you and your team's help, certainly the Israel team and TerraSky and others. It's been great to work with everyone to take a company like Sakoko, for example, that we just bought, and within 60 days we were able to drop the infrastructure costs by 50% from where they were previously, and be able to get that into a scalable environment. So as I look forward and a lot of the things that you guys are doing from a project-specific perspective is super exciting. I brought on Kubernetes, as well as working closely with you guys to develop a bit more of a better fingerprint. So we're using graph databases now to actually have this 3D model of these infrastructures, and then ideally be able to push one button and do software-based acceleration in Spot, 10x, and another button and be able to then put it into the cloud. So certainly appreciate all your help in doing that.
Very cool. I mean, if you think about your goal of doing one per day, right? The ability to sort of understand those dependencies, rapidly migrate those workloads into VMC and AWS. I mean, that's super important. I can imagine.
Exactly. Yeah. And we have to automate a lot of this so that we can ideally even do it even before we acquire the company in due diligence, where we can set up that entire infrastructure so then when it's hit go, we can literally do it within the first few hours even. So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we really appreciate the partnership, and I look forward to supporting you as a customer going forward.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. All right, so that was a little bit about public cloud. Now let's shift to on-prem. And one of the interesting feedback we got from customers as we talked to them about VMC and AWS is that they loved this idea of VMware, sort of managing the infrastructure for them and delivering it to them as a cloud service. But they said, hey, why can't you do that on-prem as well, right? What's stopping you from doing that? And as we thought about it, there's nothing really stopping us from doing it. And so a year ago, we announced Project Dimension, which was this idea of bringing the VMC model back on-prem. And last month, we were pleased to announce the general availability of VMware Cloud on Dell EMC, which is really the first instantiation of that idea. So bringing the whole VMC experience onto Dell EMC hardware that you can run anywhere you want, right? So if you look at what we're doing here, of course, it starts with the full SDDC stack delivered as a service by VMware. It's running on top of industry-class, enterprise-grade Dell EMC hardware. In fact, it's a consistent hardware environment with what we support for VxRail. It's a full solution, right? So the rack, the power supplies, top-of-rack switches. It's actually got VeloCloud built into it for secure connectivity back to the cloud for the management and control plane. And then we actually leverage the same VMC console that we use for VMC on AWS in the same way to be able to enable you to manage and provision and scale up and scale down VMC on Dell EMC. And of course, as I mentioned, the life cycle of both the VMware software as well as the underlying Dell EMC hardware is all provided by VMware. Great set of use cases for this as well. As we get out there and talk to customers, these are really the ones that are coming to the forefront right now. Edge and data center modernization. Hey, let's take those low-value operations of patching and upgrading our software, and we can take care of that for you. Switch from a CapEx to an OpEx business model. Give you cloud-like consumption economics. Pretty attractive for a lot of customers. Overcoming locality constraints, right? So whether that's data gravity or latency or maybe even country-specific compliance requirements that require that data remain on-site, we can support all of those use cases with VMC on Dell EMC. And finally, this idea of flexible capacity, right? To be able to go to the VMC on Dell console, say I want another server, and having us be able to deliver that to you in a few weeks, add it to the environment, scale the environment up or scale it down, opens up, again, a lot of really compelling use cases. All right, so with that, let me shift to the last section here, which is I wanted to show you, a brief demo that will hopefully bring to life a little bit more this concept of not only consistent infrastructure, but some of the interesting, unique value we can enable for customers on top of that consistent infrastructure. So for that, let me shift over here for a sec. Hopefully everyone can see that. All right, so what you're seeing here is the VMware Cloud console. And at the right here, you can see sort of this idea of consistent infrastructure shown here. I've got my VMC on AWS. I've got VMC on Dell EMC. In the future, we'll have VMC on AWS Outposts. And you can see where those different infrastructures are deployed around the world. And then on top of that, you can see the solutions that we can enable on top of that consistent infrastructure, right? So cloud, these are based on the use cases I talked about before. Cloud migration, desktop as a service, self-service apps, disaster recovery, even Kubernetes you can see here. And so if I just sort of click around here a little bit, I can see, okay, over here I've got my VMC on AWS running in Frankfurt. Over here I might have my VMC on Dell running in Dallas. So you can see that idea of my global VMware-based infrastructure footprint all available from a single console. But for the purposes of this demo, I want to focus a little bit more on the solutions piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through one particular solution. Let's show you desktop as a service, and when Purnima gets to her section, she'll show you a broader set of capabilities around hybrid applications, but I'll focus on VDI. So let's go ahead and click that. So as we enabled this desktop as a service solution, Horizon delivered as a service on top of VMC, we wanted to leverage some of the same principles we had with VMC, which is make it incredibly simple and fast to stand up an entire enterprise class Horizon environment. And so let's show you how that works here. So let's get started. And what you can see here is there's two steps to this. The first is you need to provision, of course, the infrastructure that VDI will run on top of. And then the second is to assign the desktop. So let's get started with the first step. So you can see here I need to set up how much capacity I need. You give it a project name. You select the deployment environment. So you can see here we've selected a multi-AZ environment. This is obviously a mission-critical application for many customers. If those virtual desktops go down, business could stop. And so we want to take advantage of that stretch cluster capability in VMC that I talked about before. We're going to do this in the US West Oregon region. And we're going to specify the number of desktop units we want to be able to support at a baseline level, 600, as well as the burst limit. So this says I want to be able to burst up to an additional 1,000 desktops. You'll note here that I'm not specifying anything in terms of the infrastructure itself. I'm specifying this from the perspective of what a desktop admin might sort of want to think about, right? How many desktops do I need to be able to run? So let's go ahead and click next. Configure some network settings here, the subnets for the management control plane. Let's configure the access details, so the URL and the desktop admin credentials to log in. Finally, I want to select how I'm going to consume this. Because it's a cloud service, of course, I could do it on demand. But in this case, I want the best possible price, so we've already selected a 3-year subscription, which gives you a built-in discount. And now let's go click Deploy Desktop as a Service. All right, so this is going to go ahead and deploy now. In real life, this would take about an hour to basically stand up that entire VMC on AWS environment. But for the purposes of today, we're going to click over to what it would look like if that provisioning was already completed. So what we've got here is basically the email that you would get when the VMC and AWS environment, the infrastructure itself, was finished provisioning. So you can see some of the details here. And now I want to go ahead and view that solution. All right. So I'm going back in, and now I can see that the VMC infrastructure has been provisioned. Of course, there's nothing running on it yet, right? So our utilization is 0. There's no VDI instances running yet. So now let's go ahead and open Horizon. All right, so now I'm clicking into Horizon. So for those of you that are Horizon users, this should look pretty familiar, right? So I think the important thing to note here is I am now in VMware Horizon Cloud, and I've got all of the enterprise class capabilities that you can take advantage of with Horizon running on vSphere on-prem. Things like Instant Clone, for example, all those great capabilities that take advantage of vSphere under the covers. I can now take advantage of all those great functionality running in a public cloud because it's based on a vSphere-based public cloud. So you can see the capacity has already been set up. Some of the high-level general setup tasks have already been pre-populated based on what I entered before. And now I need to go in and assign the desktops. So the first step here is I'm going to import a golden image. This might be my base OS with the security-hardened patching levels and configurations I want to take advantage of. And now I need to go ahead and create some new desktop assignments. So let's go ahead and do that. You can see here, again, familiar to people that use Horizon, create a set of user groups. You can see here I've got a set of contractors, right? So this is a dynamic VDI environment where I've got a base level of users, but then I want to be able to burst for additional contractors that might need to use desktops for some period of time. I'm going to go ahead and set up the provisioning details. You can see here we've already selected a small VDI environment size. Some of the details here, like I want to provision the VMs on demand. You can see the minimum desktops and maximum desktops numbers have already been pre-populated based on what I selected before. I want to go ahead and select the applications that are going to be available in that instance. You can see here I want maybe a Firefox and Google Chrome available. Select the user environment, so things that we want those VDI users to have access to, maybe the corporate Z drive, maybe they want to give them access to some of the financial applications within the company. And then finally, I can see sort of the summary here of the environment, and let's go ahead and click Finish. All right, so this environment is now being provisioned, right? So it's provisioning that virtual desktop environment based on the needs of the users. Let's go back over into monitor this. So again, I'm jumping forward here a little bit, but you can see now that we've actually, over time, been able to spin up not only the 600 base VDI instances, but also we've automatically provisioned another 100 instances out of the 1,000 burst capacity that I've been able to support. So one interesting question is, well, how are we able to do that, right? Because the initial environment was only set up to support 600 instances. How are we able to just on demand be able to support another 100? So to find the answer to that, let's go back into the VMware Cloud console. So now I'm back into the high-level view. You can see my desktop as a service is now provisioned. I can see it's over here in the Oregon US West region. Let's go ahead and click on that. So you can see the same data here, and you can actually see that Elastic DRS actually automatically, dynamically expanded the amount of resources available within VMC. So it added additional hosts, additional storage to meet those needs of that burst capacity for my VDI environment. Right? So pretty quick demo, but hopefully it allows you to see that when we enable these solutions on top of VMC on AWS, if you can click back to the slides for a sec, that we're really trying to bring all of the same speed and simplicity of getting started, combined with the enterprise class capabilities of, in this case, Horizon running on top of vSphere, but delivered with the elasticity, the availability, and the global footprint of a public cloud. All right, so with that, that sort of wraps up the consistent infrastructure section, and pleased to invite Purnima up to the stage to talk about consistent operations.
You take me to a place I know I have to face. You show me things that I have never seen.
Okay, I'll try to, I know we are running high on time, so I'll try to run through this fast. So Mark talked about consistent infrastructure, but, and that is great, right? Now it is available in your data center, Azure, AWS, Google, Oracle. But there is a gap between consumption and consistent infrastructure. When you're writing business apps, how do your developers know where the app should get deployed? How should it get scaled? How should you secure it? What cluster should it go to? What should be the reliability around it? These are hard questions that a developer shouldn't have to answer around the cloud. And that is what consistent operations does. It takes the consistent infrastructure and gives you an ability to curate a governed consumption surface, an IaaS layer, a PaaS layer, so a self-service catalog, a rich set of services, and it makes the entire infrastructure truly scalable, secure, resilient, and self-optimized. That is the reason why you need this consistent operations. We talked about different examples. You've got these different pools of capacity in different places. How can you look at it all as a contiguous cloud and manage all of it together? Now, when it comes to consistent operation, Raghu talked about this briefly. We already have been doing this for a long time, and we have curated a set of services. When it comes to automation, you've got core vRealize automation, but now we are also, which allows you to deploy across different clouds, not only your on-prem clouds, but also multiple clouds. But also you have Tanzu Mission Control that allows you to deploy now containers. And when combined with Bitnami, you truly have a marketplace and a self-service catalog across VMs and containers. Now the nice thing is these three will also integrate and are integrating with each other to provide you with that cohesive solution. Similarly, on operations side, you don't want to look at the operations of your cloud in 100 different tools. Imagine if you could manage your infrastructure with vRealize operations, understand your security and audit profile with vRealize Log Insight, be able to understand your network with vRealize Network Insight and applications with Wavefront, but all bring it together so that you have true app to infrastructure view in one place. That is what operations does. And finally, from a security perspective, we have got app defense already baked into vSphere, made available across these various environments. Now, the nice thing about this approach is it is already anchored by a management solution, vRealize, which is a trusted leader. Raghu already talked about 40K plus customers available across any of your VMware environments, be it on-prem, edge, or any of the public cloud services. But more importantly, it is also available across your native public cloud. So as you, in some of the examples we heard, Atos's example, as you move to native public clouds, Azure, AWS, GCP, you are able to have a consistent management layer all the way from hybrid cloud to multi-cloud. And the most important part now, this entire suite is available both on-prem and in SaaS. Last month, we announced the tech preview of vRealize Operations Cloud, which is a SaaS-delivered operations management solution. So here are some examples of how customers are leveraging this capability. Region Uppsala, we are going to be talking to them in another 5 minutes in room 24. They are essentially a public services company in Sweden, 12,500 plus employees, lots of different critical applications, hospital services, clinician services, transportation services, and these public services cannot go down. So what you have is they needed an infrastructure that was resilient. They needed the ability to deploy applications fast. It was taking them many months to deploy applications, and they wanted applications to be deployed within minutes. And that is what we were able to deliver, a self-service catalog that made the application deployment consistent, that made sure that the resiliency was built into the infrastructure. Another example is IHS Markit, a market research firm similar to many other examples we heard, many different locations. They are acquiring new companies constantly, different kinds of infrastructure. They were able to curate a contiguous cloud on top of all this different disparate infrastructure using the various operations component that I talked about. And finally, we have Yorkshire Water. I'm going to skip on that example, and we'll get to some other areas. So from a key investment theme perspective, what are we doing to bring all these operation solutions together? The first piece is it has to be easy, and that is what we are focusing on. Mark showed you how we can quickly set up VDI. It is all about going from zero, your core infrastructure, vSphere, NSX, and vSAN, to a cloud within a few hours, right? For example, with vCloud Foundation, with SDDC Manager, you can install your entire cloud foundation within a few hours, and then you can deploy your management stack, vRealize and other components within another few hours, and you can have a consumable catalog. And I'm going to demo that in a few minutes. The other piece that we are talking about is truly curating a consumption surface. This is where we have raised the bar with vRealize Automation 8.0. This was released again last month, and now you have a solution that is truly developer and DevOps ready, be it infrastructure as code, be it GitOps, be it iterative development, be it Kubernetes support. All of that is now baked into the product, and more importantly, it ties very tightly into VMC as well as your vCloud Foundation. And then the final one is really about monitoring and troubleshooting. This is again a big area of investment. If you have a cloud and you curate a consumption service, what happens? Developers start using it. They use CI/CD pipelines. In fact, internally, we have got on our own business unit 900 simultaneous pipelines running. You're provisioning and deprovisioning a lot of different workloads on this infrastructure. So if you don't monitor it on an ongoing basis, number one, if you don't make sure that you're self-optimizing it, you're going to have a massive problem on your hands. And that is why monitoring and automatic optimization is very critical. When a developer provisions a workload, depending on whether it is dev or production, make sure that you have a policy-based decision that it lands in the right cluster. When you are asking for a GPU-based workload, you want to make sure it lands in the right cluster. And you don't want humans to be involved in this whole process. And that is the whole value of having monitoring integrated across the whole infrastructure. So when you're building a cloud, you've got consistent infrastructure, but these additional tools around consistent operations make sure that it can scale, it can be resilient, and it can manage your business needs. So what I'm going to do is show you a quick demo on this infrastructure. So right here you see again VMC, and I'm going to set up a cloud within minutes on one of these SDDCs. So we are going to pick up one of the SDDCs and get started. So you pick up the Western region, you connect to the region, right, with an API token, and then you simply select the images that you want to upload to this region, be it local images, VM templates, or marketplace templates. You set your governance policies. In this case, I'm going to say I want approvals because it's a production environment. And I define my project, and pretty much I'm off to the races. At this point, the cloud has been already set up, and you can just simply switch to it and go to consumption of the cloud. You've got a curated catalog. This catalog has already pulled all the images that you wanted. Images from the Bitnami catalog, images from your local repository, as well as custom applications that you have built. Now, the nice thing about this is that I'm going to go ahead and deploy my e-commerce application. All I have to do is fill in a few items and click deploy. The application is deployed to now VMware Cloud on AWS. The same thing I could have done the deployment on any of the other clouds. So if I look at my cloud types, I could have deployed it on Azure VMware Solutions, on Google Cloud Solutions, and on any of the public cloud solutions, all with the same template. So the power of cloud agnostic template is what we are putting in your hands. You define an application once and deploy it anywhere. And this is very critical capability. Let us go take a look at the blueprint of this e-commerce application, and you can see it is a very simple diagram. You define it, but now it can be deployed anywhere. So now we are switching to, okay, how does the operations of the application work? So application got deployed, it's functioning. There's an issue with the application. You are simply able to drill down into that issue and go ahead and troubleshoot. Now here is the value of troubleshooting that we have added. We have done an AI and machine learning based workbench which takes every alert and automatically correlates it against the entire application topology and identifies the specific events, the configuration changes, and the metrics that are critical for you to understand. So here I can see, right here I can see that, look, there is a big spike in a performance issue, and it is connected to the connection count. So maybe the traffic has increased. So I can go ahead and look at Network Insight to see where the traffic is coming from, which cities, and it looks like it is coming from the Western Europe region, Northern Europe region, as well as Central Europe region. So now with a click of a button, I can go ahead and scale out my application to the Central European region. And so this time in the Central European region, I'm going to provision on VMware Cloud on Azure. So here the pipeline is running, and it gets provisioned on VMware Cloud on Azure. Now I can go back when it is completed to Network Insight and see that the topology of the application shows that the internet traffic is being directed to a global load balancer and being deployed to Azure and VMC. So that's kind of in a nutshell the power of operations. You are able to take that consistent infrastructure. You are able to create a common application, deploy it on demand, scale it with a click of a button, identify and troubleshoot problems immediately at your fingertips. So putting it all together, if we may switch to the slide. Yes, thank you. Consistent infrastructure and consistent operations opens up a whole slew of use cases for you. And I think it was very eloquently put forward by Eric Atatos, which is migrate to the cloud, support multi-cloud, be able to support developer and developer operations, and be able to scale out on demand. So thank you very much.